Hello everyone, welcome to this micro lecture on national cases of teacher leadership, where we will explore how teacher leadership is understood and practiced worldwide. As we have seen from our readings and international examples from the week one, teacher leadership is not just about formal positions or administrative roles. It is about agency, collaboration, and empowerment. In our context, teacher leadership also reflects our cultural, historical, and educational traditions, including post-Soviet school structures, regional diversity, and the push for educational modernization. Recent research highlights the central role of teacher leadership in shaping educational practice and policy. This Mirko lecture explores how teacher leadership can be understood, cultivated, and applied to foster inclusive, equitable, and high-quality education. In their study, Empowering Teacher Leadership, a cross-country study, Pineda Baez, Bowman, and Andrews examine how teachers enact leadership roles across three very different national contexts from Colombia, Canada, and Australia. Their research provokes an important question for our era. What does it mean for teachers to lead in a fast-changing, interconnected, digital, and culturally diverse educational world? Let me outline three key insights from their research and then connect them to our setting here in Kazakhstan and imagine what they mean for higher education and school systems today. First, leadership beyond the principal, distributed, teacher-led leadership. The study emphasizes that leadership in schools is not solely the domain of the principal or the formal administrator. The authors argue for a shift from a top-down model towards one where teachers, working with agency and supported by school culture, become leaders of learning and of change. For 21st century education, this means recognizing that teachers are not simply implementers of policy, but are active agents shaping pedagogy, curriculum, innovation, collaboration. In our context at Abai University and schools in Almaty or Kazakhstan more broadly, this suggests a call. Cultivate a culture where teachers are empowered to lead professional learning communities, curriculum innovation, digital pedagogy, and inclusive practices. Second, the role of context, culture, and collaboration. The cross-country nature of the study highlights that teacher leadership always operates within specific cultural, structural, and contextual conditions. For instance, what works in Canada may look different in Colombia or Australia because of system design, school autonomy, professional development norms. Therefore, for our 21st century setting, we must pay attention to the local realities such as cultural diversity, linguistic heritage, post-Soviet traditions, rapid digitalization, globalization pressures. Teacher leadership in Kazakhstan must be designed with our context. Collaboration emerged as a crucial enabler. Teacher leaders worked through networks, peer influence, shared practice, rather than isolated heroic individuals. In our university and schools, this underscores the importance of collegiality, distributed leadership structures, and capacity building. Third, empowerment, agency, and sustainability. Finally, the authors emphasize that genuine teacher leadership involves empowerment, the ability to act, influence, reflect, and sustain change over time. So in our 21st century frame, we are not just preparing teachers to deliver content. They must be prepared to lead change, to adapt curricula for digital learners, to engage with equity and inclusion, to design learning for global citizenship. This demands ongoing professional learning, institutional support, recognition of teacher leadership roles. For us, this means that as a university and as educators, we should embed opportunities for teacher candidates and practicing teachers to assume leadership roles in research, innovation, community engagement, inclusive education initiatives. Farabi et al. Note that teacher professional development is widely recognized as a cornerstone for advancing educational quality in the 21st century. For Kazakhstan, as we prepare our future teachers and higher education leaders, this means we must focus not only on what teachers teach, but how they grow, adapt, and lead. Farabi, Bahar, and Agam conducted a qualitative comparative analysis of teacher professional development policies and practices in 3 Southeast Asian countries, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. They asked, What are the key components of teacher professional development policy frameworks? How are these policies operationalized? What contextual factors support or hinder effective teacher professional development? One of the clear findings, in the case of Singapore, the teacher professional development system is highly centralized, aligned with national goals, and embeds continuous professional learning within the teaching profession. In Malaysia and Indonesia, the study found more mixed results. Policy frameworks exist, but implementation is uneven due to resource constraints, decentralized governance, equity of access, and misalignment of theory and practice. For example, in Indonesia, geographic and infrastructural challenges hamper access and consistency of teacher professional development across diverse regions. This prompts reflection: how do we ensure equitable access to teacher professional development across Kazakhstan's regions, rural and urban settings? The study highlights several themes that underpin effective teacher professional development: continuous learning rather than one-off workshops, collegial collaboration, teacher networks, peer learning rather than isolated training, sustained institutional support, alignment of policy, resources, infrastructure, context-sensitive frameworks, recognizing local realities, needs, cultural and structural factors. The study also warns of obstacles. Resource allocation: even well-designed policies falter when funding, infrastructure, or human capacity are lacking. Policy coherence, misalignment between national policy and classroom reality, or top-down mandates that ignore teacher agency. Scaling and sustainability: innovations that work in one region may not scale across diverse contexts. Teacher workload, well-being, and change fatigue. Raising professional standards without supporting teachers' workload and well-being can undermine success. As teacher educators, researchers, and practitioners at Abai University, what can we do now? Review our teacher education curricula. Integrate modules on professional learning, teacher leadership, collaboration, digital pedagogy. Develop a pilot professional learning community among our alumni and partner schools, peer mentoring, inquiry-based projects, shared reflection. Collaborate with regional, urban, and rural schools to understand their teacher professional development needs. Co-design context-sensitive development programs. Advocate for university-school ministry cooperation to align policy, resources, and practice for sustainable teacher professional development. Research the outcomes of our teacher professional development initiatives. Monitor how professional learning translates into classroom practice and student learning. Contribute to knowledge on what works in our national context. In her article, Teacher Leadership for Love, Solidarity, and Justice, Josephine Pham examines how teachers of color enact leadership in K-12 educational settings in the U.S. and draws out powerful insights about leadership, not just as administration, but as agentive, embodied, relational, justice-oriented work. Her research invites us to ask, in our era of rapid change, globalization, diversity, digital transformation, what does it mean for teachers to lead in the 21st century? Let me outline 3 key insights from her work too, and then connect them to our setting here in Kazakhstan and imagine what they mean for higher education and school systems today. First, leadership beyond the principal, distributed teacher-led leadership. Pham emphasizes that leadership in schools is not solely the domain of the principal or the formal administrator. Instead, teachers themselves, especially those whose voices have historically been marginalized, hold significant potential as leaders of learning, of change, of community. In her study, Pham analyzes how a Latina teacher, leader of color, negotiated her role amidst institutional power dynamics. In doing so, she illustrated how teacher leadership is both embodied and contested. For 21st century education, this suggests a shift from a top-down model of leadership to one where every teacher is recognized as an agent of influence, of innovation, of social justice. In our context at Abai University and our schools, suggests that we must cultivate a culture where teachers are empowered to lead professional learning communities, to innovate pedagogy, to integrate digital tools, to engage in inclusive and culturally responsive practices, not simply follow centrally mandated scripts. Second, the role of context culture and collaboration. A major contribution of Pham's work is its attention to the embeddedness of teacher leadership in cultural, racial, structural contexts, the power relations, the racialized expectations, the institutional norms. She uses what she calls an embodied ratiolinguistic analysis to trace how teacher leaders of color navigate these contexts, negotiate their identities, and work toward justice. What this means for us, in a truly 21st century system, teacher leadership is not one size fits all. It must be sensitive to cultural diversity, linguistic realities, post-Soviet legacies, digital divides, globalization pressures. It must attend to equity, inclusion, social justice. Furthermore, FAM highlights how teacher leaders work through collaboration, solidarity, relational practices, not just hierarchical authority. For our university and our school systems, this means building structures of peer leadership, of teacher networks, of mentoring, of community of practice, rather than relying solely on top-down mandates. Third, empowerment, agency, and sustainability. FAM also argues that genuine teacher leadership involves empowerment, the ability for teachers to act, to influence, to reflect, and to sustain change over time. She emphasizes that while structural constraints and marginalization persist, many teacher leaders of color find ways to maneuver, to adapt their practices, to refocus their leadership shapes in ways that serve justice and solidarity. In 21st century education, this suggests that we must equip teachers not just with content knowledge and pedagogical techniques, but with leadership capacities, capacity to lead change, to innovate, to adapt curricula for digital learners, to engage with equity, to design learning for global citizenship. For us, this means that teacher preparation programs must embed leadership development. Professional development must support teacher leadership. School systems must create roles and pathways for teacher leadership, and policy must recognize teacher leadership as central to quality education. Allow me to outline some implications derived from FAM's insights, tailored for our setting. Teacher education programs, such as those you teach or develop, must integrate leadership development explicitly, not only methodological courses, but leadership skills for collaboration, innovation, agency, reflective practice. Professional development for practicing teachers should move beyond one-off trainings towards sustained collaborative teacher-led leadership growth and experimentation. School systems and university school partnerships should structure opportunities for teacher-led projects, mentoring, research, innovation in classrooms, so that leadership is enacted, not only theorized. Policy and school culture must recognize and reward formal and informal teacher leadership roles. In a 21st century context, teacher as leader is a key lever for inclusive, culturally responsive, technology-rich education. Research and evaluation should explore how teacher leadership contributes to outcomes in our specific regional context in Central Asia, post-Soviet transitions, multilingual classrooms. The cross-country and cross-context literature invites us to ask, how does teacher leadership look in Kazakhstan? What enables it? What barriers exist? In conclusion, as we navigate the complexities of 21st century education, such as globalization, digital change, social inequalities, and cultural diversity, it is clear that teacher leadership is not a luxury, but a necessity. The studies by Pineda Baez et al. And FAM remind us that when teachers act as leaders of learning, change, and innovation, schools become vibrant, adaptive, inclusive communities. For the 21st century, education is evolving rapidly. Teachers are not simply carriers of content. They must be adaptable professionals, collaborative learners, innovators, and leaders. The study by Farabi, Bahar, and Agam offers us valuable insights. Context matters, agency matters, resources matter, collaboration matters. FAN challenges us to consider the value of isolating teacher leadership as a concept within a much bigger matrix of cultural, political, and historical influences. How does this help you inform your leadership practices for social justice here at Abai University, in your roles as teacher educators, researchers, or policymakers? You have the opportunity to nurture, design, and sustain that leadership. Let us envision an education system in Kazakhstan where every teacher can be a leader, not only of their classroom, but of learning, community, and society. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to our discussion and to hearing your reflections on how teacher leadership might be advanced in our local context. For further reading, please refer to the references listed on the last slide.